They laughed at her torn shoes, mocked her lunchbox, and called her trash, but one shocking revelation would turn their cruel laughter into trembling regret. Don't miss this heart-stopping story of karma, revenge, and a twist no one saw coming. Subscribe now for more gripping tales that will leave you speechless. In a bustling city stood Crestwood Academy, a prestigious private school where the children of politicians, celebrities, and billionaires studied, and where status and wealth defined a student's worth more than character or kindness. And into this polished world entered a timid girl named Alara, wearing an old faded uniform, her hair tied in a simple braid, and shoes so worn that the stitching had come apart at the edges, making her instantly stand out among the polished designer outfits and branded sneakers of her classmates. Her presence was like a stain in their perfectly groomed world, and it didn't take long before whispers spread. Who is she? Why does she look so poor? Is she even supposed to be here? And soon the whispers turned into cruel laughter as the popular girls, led by Vanessa, the daughter of a media mogul, began mocking her in the cafeteria, sneering at her lunch of homemade sandwiches wrapped in foil, asking loudly, "Did your family forget how to use money? Or do you just enjoy eating garbage?" While the boys snickered and one of them, Brian, pushed her tray off the table, spilling her food across the floor, leaving her cheeks burning as she bent down to pick it up, her hands trembling, and though she wanted to fight back, she forced herself to stay silent, for she had promised herself never to reveal who she really was, never to let her wealth define her friendships, because Alara was no ordinary poor girl. She was the only daughter of Alexander Sterling, the richest man in the country, a business tycoon whose empire spanned hotels, airlines, and technology, but she was attending Crestwood under a false name, hiding her identity after convincing her father to let her experience life without the privileges of wealth, hoping to find real friends who would see her heart rather than her inheritance. Yet each day the bullying grew worse, with cruel notes stuffed in her locker, snide remarks in class, and her gym bag once thrown into the mud, until even the teachers, bribed with donations from wealthy parents, turned a blind eye, and she often cried alone in the bathroom, wondering if her dream of living as a normal girl was just a foolish fantasy. But everything changed on the day of the annual charity gala hosted at the Crestwood Grand Hall, where all students and their families were invited, an event of gowns, tuxedos, flashing cameras, and golden chandeliers. And while Alara arrived quietly with her modest dress and simple sandals, planning to stay unnoticed, the evening shattered her secret, for when the grand announcement came, the headmaster proudly introduced the evening's chief guest. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Alexander Sterling and his beloved daughter, heir to the Sterling Empire." And the spotlight fell on Alara, dressed simply but radiantly, walking beside her father in stunned silence, and in that instant the laughter died, the whispers returned, and faces paled as realization struck like thunder, for the girl they had mocked, pushed, and humiliated was not some nameless poor nobody but the heiress of unimaginable wealth and power, the very girl whose father's signature could destroy their parents' companies or elevate them to glory. And Vanessa nearly fainted, her smug smile replaced by a desperate grimace as she remembered how she had once poured juice on Alara's homework, while Brian stammered, recalling how he had shoved her against the lockers, and even teachers straightened nervously, forcing false smiles as if to erase their neglect. But Alara's eyes, usually timid, now held quiet strength as she took the microphone, her voice steady yet sharp as she said, "For months, I've been treated like dirt, mocked for being different, for not flaunting wealth or designer clothes, but what you never knew is that kindness is the true measure of worth, not money. And tonight I stand here not as Alexander Sterling's daughter, but as the same girl you laughed at in the cafeteria, the same girl whose shoes you mocked. Yet I was richer than all of you long before you knew my name, because I never needed money to define me." And the hall went silent, shame burning on every bully's face, but her father's proud eyes glistened as he embraced her, saying, "That's my daughter," while cameras flashed, capturing the truth. And from that night on everything changed. Vanessa tried to apologize, Brian pretended to be her friend, teachers scrambled to treat her like royalty, yet Alara remained distant, offering polite smiles but never forgetting their cruelty, for forgiveness did not mean forgetting. And while her bullies regretted every cruel word, realizing they had lost the chance to be close to the girl who would one day inherit an empire, Alara learned the greatest lesson of all, that true wealth lay not in gold or power, but in dignity, kindness, and strength to rise above hatred. and though she lived surrounded by riches, she vowed never to become like those who measured others by their wallets, and so, while her classmates lived with the regret of their arrogance, Alara walked forward, not as the heiress mocked for her simplicity, but as the girl who proved that the richest treasure is a noble heart that no amount of bullying could ever break.